intrepid crew of the rogue trader vessel Emperor's Humor 2 as they face the horrors of the warp and void, bravely assembled for their next perilous mission. Lunch!
Welcome to the Munitorum Breakroom podcast, your Munitorum Mandated Lunch Break. And I don't know about you guys, but I've finally gotten over the Amersec hangover from the Ogren party for New Year's. It was rough, but we're still alive. And I'm here with the Warp Forge.
Hey Heretics, it's your boy, the Warp Forge, the fresh as a Night Lord cringe.
Always. I've got Laughing Block.
Hello, and I'm here to rage and push in GW shit for the stuff that they're doing with Old World today.
We wouldn't have it any other way. This is the Hot Take Master and
pretty foreshadowing.
Yeah, and the Bamboo Spear Overlord himself, TikitheHutt.
Howdy. As always, I'm the habitual fence sitter. I'm here to play middle grounds. Devil's advocate, as always.
Yeah, sitting where it ain't comfy, I hear you. So, as Block has foreshadowed very unsubtly, we're going to chat about the old world today. So, and I know absolutely nothing about old world. So I'm a babe in the woods. You'll have to take care of me. But I'm interested. So, I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff. There's a lot of cool fantasy elements that I'm interested in. But there's a lot of controversy happening right now that I also know nothing about. So
Beef.
The beef.
It's a lot out there.
I've been pretty absent from the I've been pretty caught up, so I haven't really been reading what the rest of the community has been up to. I only recently saw what's going on with the launch and especially the prices. So yeah. So I'm pretty much right there with Beardo, aside from a little bit of. Everything that I'm going to say here is pretty much my own opinion.
Yeah, a little bit of wallet shock there, but again, it is GW, so, you know. And we are also joined by Senor BobWins.
Hello.
And for those of you guys that don't know, this will be Bob's first episode on the podcast. He's been a long time captain, hanging out in the back, making really awesome moving photography, wizardry. I don't know how he does it. He's got to deal with Zinch, I'm convinced. But
I hired him for my wedding.
Zinch? That'll make things interesting
Weird
on the
decorator.
honeymoon.
Yeah, he kept doing something weird with the fountain. I couldn't figure it out.
I'm not sure. Was it like a Japanese anime kind of thing with different anyway?
Tentacle fountain.
Oh God,
My body pillow wife was not amused.
Just turn her over on the other side. She's cool.
Tiki's wife turns around, sees Tiki's wife looking in the room, doing dead ass eyes, looking at him after he said that.
Oh yeah, Mrs. Tiki. Does she listen to the podcast? Because we might need
No, she's a normal human. She doesn't waste her time with this shit.
Normal humans, they're overrated. Anyway, so let's see. You guys take me into it. My body is ready. Take me into the weeds. Let's figure out what's going on with this old world thing.
Alright, so where do you want to start?
So there was a new world, and there was an old world, and some dude called Sigmar, and
apparently there's really big rats. So it's basically is old world New York?
And I've got my 8th edition rulebook and my vampire counts and Tim King's Iron books right in front of me.
Yeah, the people, for the people who don't know, Old World is essentially like old Warhammer fantasy, and Age of Sigmar is new Warhammer fantasy, basically. Think of it like that. Old World, aka the original Warhammer Fantasy, has now returned, and it has been a very controversial launch, especially since it was announced over 4 years ago, and a lot of people are not happy with the end result, me included. Although I don't think I'm the best person to summarize this. I think Warp is obviously a bit more experienced, especially since he mentioned all of the shit that he has that I do not have, as I know very little about fantasy other than Tomb Kings are best kings.
Exactly, right? You follow Cetra and no one else. Well, okay, say that. You're allowed to High Queen Khalida Neferata, that's the vampire, that's a rival. High Queen Khalida, anyway, the goddess, well, the one chosen by the god of the asp. Yeah, like I say, like I've got some experience. Back in the day, I used to do 8th edition fantasy. My first ever army was Tomb Kings. Got a funny story about that one because I've got my Tomb Kings. They were my first army. Sold them off to a friend who then built upon that army. I went off to vampire counts instead because I wanted undead. I just wanted mass resurrection. So I started doing zombie hordes and just get like resurrecting 2d6 zombies every turn. It was fun. It was a good time. Pulled off some chunky stuff. Made an unkillable lord that only like bloodthirsters and great demons and the odd ogre tyrant could kill. Yeah, so many fun things happened. I remember having a game with my vampire counts against demons where neither of us won. We didn't even concede it as a draw. We both told each other that we both lost the game to the game board. You see, back in the day, demons had the changeling, the Zinch's ever made, and the changeling could copy a power. Now there's this magical vortex power that used one of the pie plates called Winds of Death for the vampire counts, and I rolled for that magical spell. My opponent then duplicated that spell. And we got around to turn 3, turn 4, and that's when we both decided we both lost the game because we summoned that many Winds of Death. We used, in my first little game of the store, it was just a kitted out garage refitted for tabletop war games. It was a full day. We borrowed everyone's small blast templates in that store to the point where we couldn't even wheel a single unit because we would be taking hits from these Winds of Death left, right, and centre, and these vortexes would move. So they would just move all over the table to the point where it's like, we're never going to engage each other in combat, we're never going to touch each other in combat, we're never going to do anything apart from take hits. So we both conceded the game, said we both lost, and the game board won.
So you basically nuked the board.
Yeah, literally, the board won. the greatest enemy of all, the game board. So yes, you could have some absolute mad games. So yeah, I've got a bit of experience with 8th edition fantasy. Not much of previous editions, but I got an idea, and we all follow Cetra, the best king.
So
from my understanding, yes, Cetra is a baller. From what little I know about him.
Oh, he's the first Tomb King, the first great king of Kemri.
So what I'm excited about is I started Warhammer 40k right as Fantasy Battle got the big axe. You know, that's when I finally made the jump from Battlefield Gothic over to 40k. And I remember seeing someone's like, what about Age of Sigmar? So I tried to pick up a few models. You know, I made, some pikemen, some handgunners, and what I didn't like was what 40k does now. The whole, like, there's no points, it's power level, oh, you can take anything you want, I'm like,
The damn power level.
Right, I'm like, So that's one thing I was happy to see about fantasy, and I'll get to seeing things about fantasy. That'll be my rant later on in the podcast, but it looks like points are back on the menu, which thank God. So the reason why I'm excited for the old world is I've been wanting a good, rank and flank game, particularly fantasy, and this is checking all the boxes, and I'm excited about it because it kind of fits my personal thing. I run a lot of D&D stuff, so people know I'm actually starting to get back into physical games, at my local friendly gaming store. I'm a big nautical guy, so a lot of the models that I'm building for Fantasy Battle, they're perfect. I can use models for my D&D campaign, so for me, it's kind of doing double duty, which helps me kind of like, okay, this isn't that bad, I can get into this. I'm just excited to see actual strategic, large-scale flank and rank battle. That's what I stopped. That's what I didn't like about AOS. Is it looks too almost high fantasy, like super high fantasy, and it was just 40k with more melee kind of. That's the way it kind of seems. Stormcast Eternals kind of just look like Space Marines or Custodes. I was like, this is a little too on the nose for me. I wanted that old school fantasy style, but no one plays the Lord of the Rings game. Kings of War was already falling apart. There was nothing else to really join. I heard bad things about War Machines or whatever that game was. That would be super competitive. So I was waiting, and sure enough, the old world rolled out at just the right time.
Yeah.
So
I'm interested in seeing, go ahead.
I gotta ask, like Warp, like considering you seem to have the most amount of experience with fantasy, what do you think about the Old World's launch in your personal opinion?
Okay, so because one of my closest.
I'm sorry to put you on the spot there, but I gotta know.
No, it's because I've had
I
a
want to
few
go second after
conversations with one of my closest friends who is a big Warhammer fantasy, loves Warhammer fantasy. She writes articles. She's big into rank and file games. Her main game, which she writes articles for Goonhammer. She plays a Song of Ice and Fire, so the Game of Thrones tabletop game as her rank and file game because fantasy kicked the bucket until recently. She's also a little bit upset with the launch. For me, I'm a little bit of a mixed bag because I know there's a lot of complaints, which I totally understand, but because of what I've seen from Games Workshop's previous releases from last year, in general, I'm not just talking about single game, just generally, I knew that it was going to be strained. And that was just me taking a wild, educated stab in the dark. And that's just because, like, if you've seen, like, the formula is they put they hype it up, the pre-order comes online, people wait 20 minutes to an hour into a queue, only to wind up at the shop to be told that everything's out of stock.
Is that the big drama that's been going on? Because I didn't know. I should have figured that.
There's many. There's many from what I've seen.
Oh yeah, I'll cover one of them.
We got a whole
so
of the beef here.
So most of the new fantasy stuff is already out of stock.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Tim King's website. Yeah, pretty much nearly every single model is out of stock. The only one that doesn't seem out of stock is online only, and that's Cetra the Imperishable. And the Old World Ravening Hordes and Tim Kings of Khemri, Arcane Journal don't seem out of stock. Every single item else, including the reference card pack, the core set, all the units are out of stock, temporarily out of stock. So I kind of knew this was going to come. Like, I'm really excited to start the Old World, but I already knew I was going to be 3 to 6 months behind everyone else. Not just because of that, but because my own projects that people are known. I'm trying to get like 3,000 to 5,000 points a night.
Do you think that was because GW underprepared for the amount of people that were going to order? Do you think they're purposely trying to do artificial scarcity to a certain degree, or do you think there was just that many people coming back to fantasy? Like, I
think my honest thought is more with Games Workshop currently in its whole, and the Old World is just another repetition of what they've been doing. So when I was talking about the old pattern of wait an hour in the queue, be told everything's out of stock, they just don't have the supply and demand for any of the games. Like, for example, I've been waiting for an order because me mum gave us some money for Christmas to order in some stuff for Christmas. They've got most of it in stock. They've got a Predator. They've got some paints that I wanted. And I also ordered 2 boxes of Primaris Crusader Squad, some Black Templars. It's well past Christmas. I'm still waiting for them. Apparently it should be coming should be back in stock in the next 4 days, but they've been saying that for like 2 to 3 updates. And I don't believe it's them, because in the meantime, I did order myself 2 Predators that they said had in stock, and within the week, so I ordered it Tuesday, got it on Friday. Within the week, I got my order. So it's purely, I think, it's with Games Workshop. Games Workshop can't meet supply and demand. And I think that's the problem. Like, I don't think they're trying to make artificial scarcity, because I think they just want to maximize direct profits.
Yeah, I have heard that, like, GW, that they've been trying to open essentially more factories, like manufacturing plants, but they have been, it's been very slow.
Yeah.
Do you think that's the primary cause?
It does almost seem like they went all in on producing the Leviathan box, almost to the expense of everything else.
Yeah, because a lot of stuff for 40K has been out of stock for 7 months almost too.
Yeah, like it's hard to speak about it because like my last main local gaming store died because of Games Workshop's lack of supply and demand. So I know that is a thing that hits everyone.
God, and that's in your same country too. You only have to like ship it by a truck or lorry.
Yeah. So it's. I don't think it's something to do with Leviathan. I think if I'm being totally honest, Warhammer's now really getting into the mainstream, and because it's now getting into the mainstream, more and more people want to start. So because more and more people want to start, especially with the success it had during the pandemic, it's just struggling to meet supply and demand. I think making more factories is definitely the right move, but I think it's just too slow. In response, it feels more like a reaction than anything premeditated or pre-planned. I don't think it's too slow because they're opening up or making new factories. I think it's too slow because they haven't thought 5 steps ahead to do that earlier.
Well, when you mention the pandemic, it kind of hit me. When you're thinking too, like something, we're in a time where there's no production or very little production. You can't make more of something, and then it blows up. So demand goes through the roof, but we're still dealing with a lot of like legislation here and there. Getting people back to work is really slow. I mean, most of the workforce has moved to working from home, which is great. No problems with that. But at the same time, I mean, there's got to be a lot of issues, just like human resources, and then I could see the business side being slow because everything is slow. I mean, you might not have people in offices to be able to sign off on, like let's say it's a government thing. You have to have a permit. Well, you may not have a person there to sign off on the permit because everybody's still working from home, or they lay people off because the XYZ. So it's kind of a perfect storm that I don't think a lot of people take into account the kind of shit that we have gone through in general as a species lately. And it's really easy to kind of sit back and say, well, I mean, this sucks. They should fix this or that. But I don't know, kind of playing devil's advocate a little bit. I could see where there would be issues, but at the same time, 2020 was officially 4 years ago. So
don't remind me.
Hold on, I get that. The springboard off that real quick, because I see that issue. It does make sense. The whole artificial scarcity, maybe not. Again, to the devil's advocate side, this is still a luxury item. It's not like they're hoarding, drinking water or petroleum. It's plastic monitors. They're awesome.
That's true.
But it is a luxury item, and they can make as much or as few as they see fit. It's theirs to do with as they see fit. But with that being said, they are still a responsible decision to make. So this is what kind of chapped my ass just a bit. Usually I'm a pretty chill guy. It takes a lot to kind of annoy me. This one definitely annoyed me. So especially, and I didn't think about it until someone mentioned the scarcity. I didn't know how bad it was over there, Warp, until you said something, which is amazing because it's made in your country. It's bizarre. But the fact that I'm not amused that a whole bunch of YouTube channels and influencers got a whole bunch of, not just of the free models, I care less about the free models, but they got to show off the games and the books and all that stuff long before the release. Now, I watched the GW, bat rep. It was cool. I liked it. That was fine. And to me, that was good enough to garner. Now, I'm not a marketing major, so what the hell do I know, right? That was enough to garner enough interest to see if people want their books. They already knew they were going to be shorted. They did not have enough stock for all the stuff people were going to order. They knew this way ahead of time. But to make that soften that wound a little bit more, all these influencers and all these big YouTube people, they get brand new boxes. They got boxes so early, they already had them built and painted. And no, those weren't all old models. They were some of the new models because I saw the sculpts. So they got some of the new stuff so far ahead of time, they were able to paint it and field it in a bat rep, and they got access to the book. So what that did for me is I'm excited for my narrative battles. And I was like, at least, this is going to be a lot more fun. This won't get like tournamentized like 40K, but no. Immediately, I'm already seeing in between the list of people complaining that their respective favorite army got FAQ'd, and I get that, whatever, we'll talk about that later. But there's already people like, if you want to be super optimal, you need to drop those spearmen and make sure you take this, and this costs this points, and make sure. I was like, they are already chasing the meta, and this shit has not even released yet. That to me is almost an epic no-go. Like that, that will hurt. Now, I'm not saying the narrative side is going to be a big boost to their hobby. I don't know. I hope it is. But as a narrative player, I'm not going to lie. That was a kind of a blow. It didn't take all the wind out of my sails, pardon the pun, but it hit me kind of heavy. Already watching people meta chase, and the game and the rule book has not even been released yet. That was absolute insanity to me.
Yeah,
I think
like
it.
if I can jump off that too, like it really bothers me that additionally, like looking at it to play devil's advocate from you being a narrative player, looking at it from a competitive player's point of view, even though I'm not a competitive player by any means, really, like a lot of these people and a lot of these outlets that got these models are people that like play these games professionally at a competitive level, and they already got a jump start like ahead of time.
Exactly.
A bunch of already people ahead of time. They already have them painted and everything. And it's like, how is like an everyday Joe Schmo supposed to catch up now? They're gonna be months. It feels like the game literally has not fully released yet, and like people won't be able to keep up with people who are already established.
Yeah, like I think it's going to be interesting because I think the old world has a lot more gradient right now of what community wants to develop. Like to try and like mirror match it, as we all know, like 40k is kind of like mostly seen as more of a competitive game now, but the Horus Heresy crowd is more deemed as I don't want to say casual, narrative speaking or themed, and that's what they want to go, but they've already been established since their first edition. Fantasy died for a lot of reasons in 8th edition. A lot of it was a lot of mismarketing. For example, 10 guys for 30 quid when you need 40 of them to maintain any viability for
that's shitty.
core troops. Yeah, that's what it was like, and that's one of the reasons why Old World was hit really hard in terms of sales. Why would you buy like one box of 10 when it doesn't make anything, when you could buy a box of Space Marines instead and have some form of filling or fulfillment from it? But I digress. What I find interesting about the Old World is what will it follow a more Horus Heresy orientated crowd, where it is wanting to play more for beer and pretzels and it wants to enjoy the experience of a game, or is it looking for, as you said, like the more competitive side like 40k and Age of Sigmar has? I can only speak about Age of Sigmar from my own experience. As a massive disclaimer, I've tried jumping in 3 separate points. Every time I felt like this is going to sound really skewed, but again, this is just my perspective at 22 minutes past 11 at night GMT. So I'm not going to be as articulate as I'd like to be, but I digress. Every time I've tried Age of Sigmar, I've always felt passive-aggressively kept by competitive-minded players.
It's the way I feel about 40k at the moment too.
Yeah, I digress. Yeah, I don't want to digress too far away from that, because I'm not talking about like my gripes Age of Sigmar. This is about the Old World. But like, I wonder is if Old World will pick up, and I think it will. It's just going to be slow, because I think it's just going to be a slow grow kind of game. I think it will pick up because there's an established community, but because I don't know how that community has personally developed over the years with the 9th Age and the Warhammer Fantasy Battles Armies project, I think it really is one of those things where I need to really research and have a look at those communities, particularly the Warhammer Fantasy Battles Armies project community, just to gauge a level of like what is the community going to develop into. Because I do see a tournament scene for it, but I'm highly skeptical of it, because 8th edition was not the best balanced game. It had some fun things, but it had some very big counters. Like, you would never see a monster unless it was like double Terrorgeists, because cannons just outright were balked in that edition. Like, you could just one shot like my Kemarian War Sphinx in one turn with one cannon. If you just rolled a 6, instant death kind of thing because he dealt 6 wounds to it and only had 6 wounds. It was also toughness 8. When your cannon's strength 10, doesn't matter. Oh no, sorry, it was toughness 8, sorry. And it was still wounded on 2+. And I still remember that time. I was just like, yeah, that kind of took my wind out in the sails for any competitive themes for fantasy. And Magic was also very busted at the time as well.
Yeah, I think we may see a competitive scene like once while it's like still young and fun and stuff like that. But I think you're only going to see maybe 1 year's worth of tournaments and competitive scene, and then I'm forecasting with no evidence. You know, I'm literally going blind here, so it's just a blind man's guess. Don't follow me, Helen Keller, through a minefield. Your mileage may vary, but just a blind guess. I think it's going to have about a year's worth of tournaments, and then it's going to be relegated back to kind of what 30K or Horus Heresy was, where it's kind of more for like the old beards of 40K who don't want to keep up with the constant, meta chasing and just want to like play a game for lore's sake or to have fun and stuff like that. I think that's the niche that narrative's going to reside in maybe after a year of people trying to make it competitive. And I think Age of Sigmar, again, I've never played this, so I can't really say if it's good or bad. I think it's going to maintain its spot of hyper competitive while Old World just kind of settles into a nice kind of fun narrative, chillaxed, casual style game.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I hope
I think that'll be important to build back up the narrative side of gameplay. I mean,
yeah, I think I'm not trying to vilify the competitive crowd. That's the last thing I'm trying to say.
Nice.
I think the honest issue is with competitive play is that it's got a momentum to it. Like as Mordian says, there's a treadmill to it, and the treadmill is relentless. It doesn't stop. If you take a break and you become out the cycle, it becomes such a grind to come back to it, and you've just got it, and it does become a lot of, and you do have to invest a lot of time commitment into it, not just with like building, painting armies and such, but also the level of like keeping on top of correct rules, like balance updates and such, and FAQs and erratas, making sure that, and you've also got to research the opponent's armies, but you're also keeping on top of things online with like, as people have previously mentioned, like the meta lists and such. You got to keep on top of like the tournaments and seeing which armies are doing good in their like win ratios and such. There is a lot of time investment that you got to keep. If you decide to take a break, it is a monumental climb back to the top. Like what's the story of like the guy with the boulder always trying to get up to the ball? Yeah, that lad. Trying to get up to the top. Up to the top of the mountain, always falling back down with the boulder. It's basically that. I think if the community jumps on the like trying to make this a true competitive game through and through, it's gonna end up burning out. And I don't mean that in the sense of that the game's going to get cancelled. I think you're just going to have a lot less players invested into this game, and that's just purely because of the differences in the units or the differences in the gameplay. So it's a rank and file game first and foremost. You're investing a lot more. I would say you're investing a lot more time in building up these like ranks and files than you are of building like hordes, like say in Age of Sigmar, or specific playstyles or factions in 40k. I honestly think that when you put the time and effort into building like the rank and files and such, especially because I don't know how it's going to even out yet, because like I say, like I've seen bits of the old world, but I haven't like tuned in too much, so I can't really say from a competitive standpoint what the game will become, because it's far too early. I think a lot of people would agree with that. But if it becomes anything like 8th edition fantasy was, it was very much a horde mentality. So you'd have ranks of 10 by 4, so you'd have 40 guys in a unit. It doesn't, from what I've seen through various battle reports, it doesn't seem like that. It's trying to like scale down from that, which will be a blessing more than a curse. But even then, like if you're having like 3 ranks of 5 guys, that's still like a block of guys that you want to see and perform in an even back and forth. If it turns into an honest competitive game, as you said, where it's like things are getting deleted as easy as they do in, say, 40k or Age of Sigmar, and you just see these ranks and files just get completely decimated, not even after they get out their own deployment zone. I think you're going to see a lot of people disinterested in the game. They'll just be thinking, like, why bother with trying to build up these units when they're just going to get obliterated by, like, something else. And then, like, you know, the tactics of position and all that means nothing when your opponent has, say, like a cannon or a dragon that just flies around in the center of the board and just goes, right, throwing down flame templates and such.
As Albert Camus would say, is one must imagine Sisyphus happy.
Yeah.
So with that quote, it really sticks with me with the whole competitive thing. Like, yeah, it's a Sisyphean task to try to get back into it if you lose time or like you're just trying to keep up with the meta and everything. But one must imagine Sisyphus happy. Like that's so the grind of it is part of it for a lot of the competitive players. And I'm not a competitive player, but I'm pretty competitive in other things. But I think that the competitive side has taken off so much because people are looking for that. Oh yeah, I'm on top. Yeah, I know exactly what's going on. Oh, don't fall off the ladder. You know, we gotta be better than the Joneses. But they get something out of that. You know, they derive some sort of self-worth from that, maybe. I don't know. I'm not a psychiatrist, as Tiki says, your mileage may vary. But I feel like a lot of people, and we do this sometimes too, we slag a little bit on the competitive side, mostly because it's taking over the fun side for us, the beard pretzels. But I want to be one to say that, you know, competitive is valid, and I'm happy to see some competitive with Old World, if only to just see GW support it more the way that they support all their competitive stuff. They just have that bent. That's what they're going to do. But I do feel like since AOS is so competitive, I mean, it is, it's gritty, it's milsim gritty, that having Old World as the whimsy, the narrative, the imagination side of it might at some point in the future have those two communities kind of meet in the middle, maybe. I don't know. That's just me being hopeful. But anyway, I digress.
Like,
I think. Oh, okay. Sorry.
I think you're on the ball there. Absolutely. I can only go off my own experience, and from what I can see, at least, the people who are happy and content with going back up that mountain, per se, as you said, those tend to be few and far between. Most people, because as we said, it's a luxury product, it's something that people want to do in their spare time. Very few people are wanting to go as all in or as invested. Most people just want to get their armies built, painted, and from that point onwards, they want to figure out where they want to take their army next. They don't want to have to think about, like, as you said, like the whole idea of this meta and the mentality, like that absolutely works for a lot of people, and I think, you know, more power to them. But I think for a lot more people, I think the issue is they'll come to a game, or they'll come to that pickup game, which I think is the point of where we all kind of discuss this middle ground, where this middle ground is the pickup game. If they just rock up to like, say, the core start set, and someone brings something that's meta because they've invested more time into just basically being more invested into how the competitive scene plays, you'll start finding that a lot more people become disinterested because they weren't prepared for that level of investment, and they feel as though that's very demanding, or that they feel like they're demanded into putting in the same investment, which for them it's just might be another hobby amongst other things for them. And I think that's where the real turning heads are. So when I say, like, it'll be a burnout, I'm not saying the game will be cancelled or anything like that, but I think it'll be a lot more, the community for fantasy will be a lot smaller than people currently think. And I think I think there is a place for competitive Old World, but it needs to be careful, especially at the launch day. Like, as I said, when everything's already out of stock and we'll still have like quarter of the factions out, like the Tomb Kings. I've noticed like some of the characters they've said are coming, like the Emissary of Cetra and such, hasn't even arrived. We don't have the Screamer Skull catapults, for example. We don't have the Casket Swords, which I'm desperately waiting on. I want my casket. I want my golden box. All right, my magical golden box.
That sounds like fun. I mean, as long as they don't pull a Votan and release half an army and leave it as half an army. Now, it's a good half an army, but it's still half an army.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see...
give them no lore and books or anything to do for a year and a half and still nothing in sight. Like...
That's a grudging.
I think for Old World to exist and survive as a beer and pretzels casual experience, it would actually need AOS to take the competitive heat. Like something I wonder about is how much of like a competitive nature is fueled by game design, and how much of it is just fueled by society at large. Like, the internet has changed so many things over the years that, like, nowadays, even your most casual guy is very, like, in the 40K scene, is very likely to even enter a narrative scenario having posted his army list on Reddit or Discord and get opinions on it.
Well, I think with the way that everything advances, I mean, if you look at it, just like complete abstract here, but if you look at science, right? So if you transported a pilgrim to 2024 and used a remote to turn on a TV, he would do his damnedest to burn you as a witch. But that whole, like, nowadays, it's like, say, like new math. Like, when I was in school, we did regular math, like we did math, but kids now are doing what I did in 8th grade in like 4th grade. So,
oh, absolutely.
I think that the additive skill level that comes with like the long-term play, like everybody knows this trick and that trick, is like chess. It's grown. There's all these different approaches that you can do. Where, like, you know, back in the day, oh yeah, we're gonna move some guys and shoot. Well, now we've got like 16 different ways to do that, and there's a best way, and there's a fun way, and there's a mean way. So I think that, in a way, like you guys were saying, that the internet is kind of taken off and everybody has access to all the best ways to do this, that, or the other in somebody's opinion. And, you know, whatever percentage of that is right, it still builds the collective knowledge of how to play in a way that, you know, we get past just being able to rock up and, you know, as Tiki says, throw click-clack math rocks.
From my perspective, and I want to call back to one of our older one of our first podcast episodes. I think to answer Bob's question, I think it's mostly society at the moment that's like, because you can kind of feel it in just like everything in video games, no matter what it is. Everyone has to feel like they're a winner or they're right with everything. Like, everyone's a try-hard, a sweat, a sweater. It feels like half the time. Especially when it comes to any kind of modern multiplayer for video games. And my thought is, I think it's bleeding into Warhammer, especially right now, and we're kind of feeling the brunt of things. And for the casual like beer and pretzels crowd, it feels rough right now, to be honest.
Well, to take Death's side, because I know he's not here to defend it, the competitive scene can be good. It's just the people that you keep in your competitive circle.
He is in Canada.
Yeah, him and his boys up in Tim Horton land, you know, they have a good time, and he always says good things about it, and it sounds fun. And then you look at when Morning Glory talks about the group that he plays at, you know, yeah, they're competitive, but they still have so much fun that they actually like framed the poo dice, and it's now like a landmark of that local area. Like, there's still plenty of fun to be had. It's just, you have to keep competitive fun. So like I said, the point I was trying to make, what already got me, was I already saw people like leaning into the win at all costs style slope by already crunch. And there's nothing wrong with like math. I love building lists. I love Math Hammer too. People are like, oh well, don't take that, that's suboptimal. And I already saw that phrase in a chat, and I was like, oh sweet Jesus, the book isn't even out yet. And these people are already like, well, if I bring all this and you can't shoot these guys down, I'm like, you can already feel the win at all costs. I don't think every competitive player is a win at all cost player. It's just you find the win at all cost players in the competitive scene 90% of the time. So I think they kind of get that negative representation.
Yeah, it's not that I want to blame like all people who play competitively. And I would say most competitive players are chill people, but it definitely has felt recently, and I'm seeing it a lot in my own community where I play, where most of the casual people have kind of just like taken a step back, because it feels like we're just kind of not welcomed almost. I don't really know how to describe it unless you're part of the heresy crowd. Yeah, basically, yeah. It feels like, kind of like what you said there, Tiki. Feels like, oh my gosh, you brought an unoptimal thing. Like, a lot of people don't even want to discuss, like, the game or the setting or just chat. Like, 3 of the games I've had over the last like 2 months have been very poor experiences. And very reminiscent of each other in a lot of ways. Mostly in that it feels like like they don't want to talk. They only just want to play. They bring these hyper competitive lists to what's supposed to be like a casual game, like when you're like setting up your games, and it feels like they're just using you as tournament practice fodder. And it's like, this isn't what especially when I've invested so much into this hobby, it's like this isn't really what I signed up for.
This ain't a back alley in Singapore. Yeah. We ain't doing business without talking.
I get that, but I know we talked about it. Sometimes you just got to back it up by being willing to walk away. And I think that's the biggest thing, is you don't give these people the same thing. Yeah, I'm not a hooker. I was like, sorry, you have to buy me dinner first and talk to me. You can't just like bid me over the table.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing here. I'm like, no, it's like, I was like, I'm not going to sit here and be like cannon fodder for you to do a Math Hammer list. Like, it's supposed to be a competitive game. It's not that. I'm just going to pull my model and be like, oh, look at that. You win. Have a great day. And I'm going to walk over, especially as a grown adult. I'm not 18 or I'm not 21 or 22 anymore. Like, I have so little free time. I work so much overtime, it's ridiculous. So I'm not, what little time I have off, I'm not going to be someone's comp stomp. Like that's not how this is going. Like, I'll walk away and walk next door and get like a doner kebab and a beer, and I still have a great day. Like, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, I'd argue it's absolutely a side effect of society at large. Just the shift in dissemination of information that technology has enabled, and then probably also like Warhammer and tabletop hobbying in general becoming more popular.
I might even blame it on something particular. I know it's a bit like much to say, like, oh, you're pointing your finger at this one thing, and I'm not talking about Mordian or other most 40K streamers when I'm talking about this, or even like necessarily streaming in general, but like gaming streamer culture, I think, has had a detrimental effect on like people's mindsets for playing games. Like, again, it's that it feels like it had like this, like, modern streaming culture has imbued this toxic, as you said, like win at all cost mentality in a lot of people, and it feels like a lot of people like chase the meta until they just like burn out. Like,
and then they do Fortnite dances once they win. Yeah, I've seen it.
Oh my god.
I mean, everybody wants to win, and there's a significant time sink in painting up a large force. So I mean, I do get it from that aspect. Like, nobody wants to spend a ton of money and a ton of time painting up models in order just to just get stomped every single game.
And yet some people still buy French for bolt action. Hey,
Right.
It's a skill issue, apparently.
I do feel like every community is definitely going to skew competitive given enough time. There's always going to be some guy that finds out that pikemen are a little bit more efficient than spearmen or something.
Well,
There's always going to be some guy. And so it takes a lot of effort in order to maintain a more narrative-focused community.
Do you think
And then it turns
this
into a
is
plastic arms race.
that's definitely what it feels like right now. But like, do you guys think that this period like will continue, or do you think it will eventually like subside and like the competitive side of Warhammer and tabletop wargaming as a whole will kind of not die down, but like just kind of like settle a little bit, like just
Or go the way of Magic the Gathering, perhaps.
or yeah, the other side, or go the way of Magic.
Well,
That got super competitive, and then look what happened to it.
I think that the changes that we're noticing in like the different communities and all that is, I don't think that the game has changed. And I really don't think that the way that the game is played has changed that much. I think that the people coming to play the game are what have changed.
Yeah,
So-
I agree with you there.
The real question, and to get real broad topic real quick, is, are we as a society going to continue to slide into this just have to have a prize for everything, I have my own soapbox and everybody has to listen to me social media thing, or we're going to pull our heads out of our collective ass and be people again?
Computer says no.
Like, it's when it comes to the competitive community, like, you know, like, I can play games competitively. Like, my favorite game, the Batman Miniatures game, I play competitively, but I kind of just judge it on my worth, on the worth of the quality of a rule set. So, for example, 40k, I only play competitively because I've got a collection of Night Lords that is large enough to accommodate for a variety of players. Batman, I play competitively.
Night Lords.
Exactly, right?
Beat me to it.
Exactly. So when it comes to like Batman, it's like I play competitively because the balance is there. Every faction is balanced in their own way, just because of how the game's laid out. There are some factions that have an uphill battle against others, but the disparity is marginal. It's not like the Great Canyon or the Grand Canyon, where it's like so far and wide. It's very marginal, so that's why the balance is there to me.
It's rock, paper, scissors, versus North Korea.
Yeah, that game sounds cool. Discord
Yeah.
Minis. She designed that game, right? She invented it. She's the best player.
No.
No, she was just a big fan of it.
No.
No. She once enjoyed it, but then like Discourse Miniatures is Discourse Miniatures, and that's all I'll say about that.
Her channel
It's gotta be.
Here we go.
If we're not getting a spicy take, this has got to be bad.
Oh yeah,
No,
her channel was 100% Batman focused until she got on that GW hate train for clicks.
Everybody hate train. She even comes after D&D, and I doubt she's even played a game.
Yeah, even
no
D&D. Oh yeah, you brought it. All of us here are not huge fans, especially with the clickbait video titles she does. That like.
Okay, I will say that as someone who fails to make YouTube videos regularly, I have no room to talk. But the one thing I'll never understand, maybe it's the algorithm. What the hell do I know? The weird faces.
YouTube
with
face?
the weird. Yeah, what is with the
face?
weird? Everybody does it.
The algorithm pushes it.
It's to give this.
if you do it.
Yeah, it's
You have a look of sheer unadulterated
shock.
terror.
Oh my god! That's happening. That's
You just
in
saw
our
a biblically
brain.
accurate
Oh, we all know
angel.
it's fake. I'm assuming it's fake boobs. We all know it's fake, but we get it and it's cool.
Yeah,
no one
but
really calls
when-
it out in public.
So
but
is it?
Yeah, but in a
on
quick
YouTube
second.
based?
Well, from my understanding, in the quick second that your brain, for a lot of people, their brain essentially will go on autopilot, and they just see a quick expression, and they're curious for a split second, and they don't think, and before they know it, the video's playing, and they're listening to it, and they've already hooked.
No, see,
like
to me,
that's how a lot of people
screams,
are.
This is child level. So like any video that has that, I specifically don't watch it.
There are literally people who like apparently do not have internal monologues or internal thoughts for themselves. So I can believe it personally. Like,
but it's like this, and it's also the same three faces. It's one thing if you did a different face every time, or at least I would get that. But it's the same face every time. So
You got
literally you're
people,
not surprised. It's the same
and you
face
got
every time.
whoa.
Yeah, I literally don't understand that. It drives me up the wall.
yeah, I hate it too. It's that's like the number one sign. Like you look at like a content creator in the last 2 months, if like 80% of their videos are like weird, or their hands are clapped in their face, or their mouth is open, like while over like the just reaction to another video, you can tell that channel is like just they're grifting for cash.
I'm so gonna draw all of our characters with YouTube face now.
Yes, you heard it here, folks.
Hell no.
Yes,
Dude,
for the meme. For the meme.
I'm submitting
I'll
some
treat
of
it
my
like my own
pictures
channel, and I'll
for
just
YouTube
ignore it
face.
for 3 months.
Oh man. Well, the thing about that is though, like, I can't draw faces, so nobody has a face. So it's just gonna be everybody like with their hands in their face, like the refreshing meme, but with a helmet on. Maybe we'll have
Perfect.
Warp Sky like flaying somebody and looking really happy about it. I don't know.
It feels scary, man.
No, Night Lords.
Right? But yeah,
Some
like I
big
say,
inflammatory text like the podcast is canceled in all caps.
like I say, come back to World World. Like, for me, it's like, I think it's still quite early days to see if this game be competitive. I think when it comes to like competitive metas and mentalities, and like as someone was saying earlier about how the internet's figured everything out 20 minutes before even the books came out, this has been something that's been going on since at least 2008 or 2010. Like, this has been going back as far as like old wargame forums like Daka Daka. That's still around. It's basically people finding the most efficiency by finding out how to reduce probabilities close to 0% into list as possible with their list directions, and then letting the game, I don't want to say play on the rails because it's not quite what I'm trying to say, but there is an element of that, and I think once people get that into their minds and start rehearsing that, there's very few there's very few mentalities that will keep to that, but many people kind of get switched off of that, especially when we have a game that offers a plethora of units, and when you've basically been told by the internet that you can only take a quarter of those units, and you have to put them with X, Y, and Z equipment and such, it can be a bit of a detriment. But I can see this game being as impartial as can be. I think this game will take a more Horus Heresy approach just because of the unit variety. There's a lot of players who have missed the support for this game, and I think there's a lot of players out there who want to crack out Plastic Wand Boys, right? They want to get their armies back, get the armies into the supported environment, not the competitive environment, the supported environment. So at most update the movement trays so they're all within like the 25mm benchmark and such. But most people want to come to a game and know that the game is supported, so they're in with a good chance of getting said game, rather than having to do the extra 5-mile step of trying to find a community for that game first, even if it's a dead game. As someone who's invested a lot into a few dead games. So I think a lot of people are excited, and I think a lot of that excitement hasn't waned, but it has certainly been harmed because of Games Workshop's lack of supply and demand. And I think that's that's one of the biggest things. I know there's been a lot of controversy around the Legacies armies, but it's one of those things where it's like, again, where it's early days, so we have to. Well, it's early days, so
the hope is the legacy stuff that they're pulling it to like revamp it later. That's what I hope anyway. Same thing with 40K. Like I hope that they're pulling those things to come back out with it stronger.
All right. I gotta jump on here because as someone who was up until I saw the release of the actual the quote unquote new release of models, I was pretty excited for Old World, especially for Tomb Kings.
Gene, what did I say about finger quotes?
But the thing is, almost none of these are new models. They announced Old World in 2019. What were they doing for 4 years, considering that like 90% of the sculpts for this game, which is supposed to be not a return of an a new game, are old sculpts, and we are paying modern, not just modern prices. This is, from just looking at it, this is going to be the most expensive Games Workshop game by a mile.
Well, you know, they had to make that 474th Space Marine Lieutenant. They really had to get that done, so everything took a backseat.
I'm building all my own models from kit bashing.
Yeah,
and I wouldn't have as much of a problem paying for a lot of these prices if they were new sculpts. But a lot of these sculpts are almost as old as I am. I'm gonna turn 24 in 4 months. That is unacceptable, charging the prices they are. For like, and I could understand, like, I wouldn't have a problem with them bringing back the old sculpts if they sold them similar to how they're selling stuff for like 40K, like a standard like unit box is like around $60, but it's 80 or 85 USD almost, after, like, before or after tax, depending on where you live. Like, I'm afraid, like people are gonna get priced out of this game, like, are gonna be just, like, cut off from Old World and not get a chance to do this, just because, like, unless they're aware of 3D printing. Just because of the prices.
Maybe, but now 3D print will go brrr.
I got a conspiracy theory about this real quick. So, you know, they sent out a whole bunch of free boxes, right? I wonder how much of the cost of those boxes is tacked on to the retail price.
Or and hear me out.
I mean, if they're old sculpts, the molds and whatnot are already made.
That too. They didn't pay to develop these sculpts in that time, to develop the molds.
As I understand it, I mean, it only costs about 10 grand to make a new mold anyway, and you make that back in like 20 minutes.
Like, I think it depends on an army by army basis for myself. Like the Tomb Kings, some of the core stuff should have absolutely been updated. Like the skeletons, I love the shields. That's the only thing that makes me want to play those units. But they are very, very dated. The chariot and the horses are dated as well. So I totally get that, but at the same time, I sympathize with Bretonnian players because there's a lot of outdated stuff there, and I totally understand the frustration and the prices, absolutely. But excuse me, sorry. I think a lot of it is like a lot of the sculpts, especially for Tomb Kings, have already been modernized because they were one of the last like modern fantasy Games Workshop sculpts that we like judge in today's standards. Like, for example, the Necropolis Knights, the Chimerian War Sphinx, the Tomb Guard especially, they were all modernized models. And the Lich Priest, for example, they were all modernized models before Games Workshop kicked the bucket on fantasy. And they still hold well for today. And there's certain old models that I still feel have aged relatively well, like fine wine, like the Sabdi with the ritual blades. The Great Bows are also quite fine as well. It's just preference that I'm not a fan of the beaky guy in the middle. But otherwise, like, I still judge them as relatively decent models. And obviously, like, there has been new models like the Battle Standard Bearer and the actual new Tomb King model itself, etc. Again, like, he is a bit dated with his horses, but otherwise, I think he's still just a fine model as he is. Finally, they actually put him on a big base as well. They didn't have him on 4 separate cavalry bases and then a chariot base on the back. So they've actually like remodernized the base on that. But like a lot of the models outside the core stuff currently for Tomb Kings as they've gotten out, and they've still yet to release more. So they've got to release like again the Casket of Souls, which I think outside of the Casket Guard, but maybe is still a good. It's still a good sculpt. The Scream Skull Catapult needs to be updated, but when they've updated so much stuff already for Tomb Kings, I can give it a bit of a pass. They might come the next refresh, whenever that may be. What was it? So those, I'm sure those are, the character as well, the new character sculpt for the Emissary, etc. as well is meant to come out, and obviously we've got like people like Prince of Phobos and High Queen Khalida, which are either old models that I still think check out to this day, or they are like they were done in Fine Castle, or probably done in either metal or forged old resin now. But I think like most of the Tomb King range will be fine. I think it's purely an army to army basis. Like Skaven is I would say Skaven's probably one of the most controversial decisions to date with the old world, especially their sculpts. But you've got some nice sculpts with like older armies as well, like the Dark Elves, like they're still being sold for Age of Sigmar, and I think they're pretty much fine on point as well. So I think it really I think a lot of the whole old sculpts debate, I think there is an issue of the pricing. Like the Usabi Ritual Blades, even I
would not have a problem with the old sculpts if they were priced appropriately, but they're not. So I do have a massive problem.
Well, I think they're priced at availability. You know, you either go on eBay and get bent or the barrel by scalpers, or you're going to pay GW and have to pay their fine taxes because it's not print anymore. It's supply and demand. I mean, it's shitty, but again, it's a luxury good. I get it.
Yeah, we're clearly running into supply issues. I do respect them for keeping all the production in the UK, but I do wonder if a US based factory is in order at this point.
Yeah, it should be, especially since I believe the United States is the largest demand for Warhammer
building
products.
For the Aussies, they don't have to pay those crazy prices. Those poor bastards.
That too. Oh, those poor bastards.
For me, it's like some of the prices are expensive, but I've noticed some of them are a little bit, at least for me, they're a bit cheaper than they were before. So I still remember, what was it? Tomb Guard. They used to be sold as a box of 10. And I believe they were sold for either 28 quid or 30 quid. I believe before they kicked the butt, they were 30 quid a box for 10. So there will be 60 quid for 20. You're getting a box of 20 now of Tomb Guard for 47.50. So in certain regards, absolutely, like some of these stuff is absolutely expensive. Like I would not be surprised the Tomb King's core set will be the most expensive one out of them all, because like it's nearly 200 quid. That's no matter how we shift it, looks like product or not, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money for to try and start a game.
That's over a trip to the Champagne room.
That's over $300 USD after tax. That's exactly. For and most of them are old models. That's the thing. And it
And for a lot of new people, because some people will only get into it. I think what always catches everybody is you're not paying for the models. Never forget that. You're paying for the bits and pieces and instructions. You still have to cut them out, build them without fucking that up, and then paint them. And if you're gonna play at a GW store, which is becoming more and more rare if they're not doing demo games, then it all has to be GW and it all has to be painted. So hey, it's not like you pay and you get the models.
Yeah.
A bit of a big ask when there's a lot of other historicals out there as well. Not even fantasy.
Yeah. Yeah, but like I say, like I say, there are certain things which are just like very expensive. Like, I'm not sure how to feel about Tomb Swarms. I do like the new sculpts for them. I think they are absolutely night as day, like black and white kind of thing. They are a straight up upgrade over the older stuff. And I have noticed like certain the units have gotten cheaper. If they've gotten expensive, or if they've got more, it's not by much. I still remember like, the Necropolis Knights, they were about like, I believe between 30 to 35 quid. So they've only went up to 37.50, which isn't too bad, but there are certain things like the core sets I think are just a bit, if you're buying that core set, like, I'm not talking about people who do this for a professional living or anything like that. I'm talking about like the average you and I going up to a store. If they wanted that box, they're not buying anything else for a few months in terms of hobby. Like, they'll get some time investment out of it, so to recoup the losses is the hope. But whilst you're built, like, if you're spending a few months out of the loop to just basically do this and you come back into the loop, kind of goes back to what I was saying about going up that mountain again. So it's going to be interesting to see. All in all, like, I think it's early days to really see where it's going to go, but I'm going to remain optimistic, and I'm going to say, like, there's going to be a lot of goodwill in the community. Outside of Games Workshop's controversies, like when people actually manage to get their hands on this and it starts to properly take root into communities and areas, I do see this game shaping up to be a good one. It's a game that people have sorely missed.
So after a whole field of beef cattle about the stuff about fantasy, I'm still kind of looking forward to it. I gotta say, I mean, I think it's gonna be fun. And honestly, if nobody else is gonna have fun with it, the Quiet Order dudes are gonna have fun with it because it's just what we do. And speaking of Quiet Order guys, we have yet to ask our dear Bob the 3 questions. Who are you? What brought you? And what keeps you?
Alrighty. So you guys already know my name, BobWins. So as for who am I am a big fan of the Munitorum Tempestus, so I kind of have a Scion-focused force. Relatively new, actually, to the, tabletop scene. I joined at basically the tail end of 8th edition. I'd always been interested, kind of looked over at the Warhammer tables from the Magic the Gathering tables from afar, but never really jumped in until the 2018 version of Kill Team kind of lowered the bar enough for me to jump in. So decided Scions look pretty cool, so got some of those, painted them up, and I was hooked.
So what keeps you at the table? What keeps you coming back?
I gotta say, I really enjoy both sides of it. I enjoy the table time or the tabletop experience. I like to get out there. I like to, yuck it up and tell some bad jokes and have fun and just get out there and roll some dice. I'm not really competitively minded. I do enjoy the odd victory here and there, but it's really getting out there and then meeting people and making cool moments really what I'm there for.
You're a guard player, man. If you win, that's great. If not, well, I'm a human up against a space marine. What do you expect?
Yeah, if I lose, it's canon.
I do not subscribe to this.
You own a Titan. Get off the soapbox.
Yeah, it's me.
That's a low blow.
It's an elite faction.
How is it a low blow? It's literally the tallest thing on the battlefield.
I knew you were going to say that, Tiki. I knew you were going to say that.
And now a word from the sponsors of the Munitorum Breakroom podcast. Are your servitors gunked up, servos locked up, gears grinding too hard, or the thing just won't respond when you kick it? Then look no further. Serve Thy Oil is the tried and true Tech Priest blessed oil this side of Armageddon. Just drench the thing, and voila! Your ancient lobotomized appliance will be just like new. It'll be just as inconsistent and unreliable as you remember, with 2 easy steps. Apply the oil and speak the holy prayer. Buy your Serve Thy oil today from the forge world nearest to you, preferably a century in advance.